Hi everyone, the topic we're going to cover today is the Saturn and Jupiter transition and how they influence 12 zodiac signs in 2026. And before I start, just a quick introduction, how I read the chart and also how you can use this reading. I use tropical zodiac and the whole sign house system for all my readings. So please check your tropical signs only and use the whole sign house system. And if you're interested in Vedic astrology, you must have heard of Ernst Wilhelm. So his teaching are all based on tropical zodiac, and you can search his video on YouTube. He has a whole video explaining why he stopped using sidereal zodiac in Vedic astrology, and then he started using tropical zodiac. And usually I will apply graha dristis, that means the planetary aspects. So in Vedic astrology, each planet that has its specific eyesight, and that dristi, the eyesight, will also send the influence to the houses that they are looking at. So for example, Saturn's dristi is looking at the 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th from its position. So for example, if Saturn is transiting the 6th house, Saturn's 3rd aspect will be on the 8th house, and the 7th aspect, the opposite, will be the 12th house, and the 10th aspect will be on the 3rd. So you have a full picture when Saturn transits the 6th house. It also shooting the influence to the 8th, the 12th, and also the 3rd. But in this video, I will only cover the most important aspects. Otherwise, the video will become too long. And the topic today is about Jupiter and Saturn's transition, but it is worth mentioning that 2026 is a powerful year of change for every one of us. So for example, Saturn enters Aries on February 14th, 2026, and Uranus is not covered in this video, but Uranus finally moves into Gemini on April 26th. And Jupiter moves into Leo on July 1st, 2026. Rahu and Ketu axis will shift into Aquarius and Leo axis on July 27, 2026. So most people will feel the shift most strongly in February, April, and July. Particularly July, because July will also have Jupiter and also Rahu and Ketu shifts. And the reading is good if you check from your rising sign as well as your moon sign. Because in Vedic astrology, you can read everything from the moon's placements. It means your moon becomes your first house, your ascendant. And also moon rules our mind, manas, our conscious, and how we see the world, how we feel the world, how you feel the experiences. Not necessarily what happened, but how you resonate and how you feel about the events itself. And also, if you're over 50 years age, you'll probably resonate more with the transits from your moon. And if you're born in the nighttime, also if your moon is strong, you should definitely check the transits from your moon sign. So that starts with Aries. Aries risings and moons, Saturn is currently in your 12th house and will move into Aries in your first house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13, 2028 for 2 years' time. So for the past 2 years, it has been quite tough for Aries risings and moons because Saturn is the lord of the 10th and also your 11th house. The things you want to do, your career path, your ambitions, business, recognition are transiting in the hidden house, house of 12, the house of ending, the ending of the cycle. 11th house is the house of achievements and also your recognition, the fruits that you enjoy from your efforts. So in the past 2 years, your career may have faced some changes and you might have experienced some shifts in your friend circle as well. And in terms of career and the things that you want to do in life, that's the 10th house thing. The first half of 2026 is looking much more supportive because Jupiter will still be in the Cancer in your 4th house, shooting the aspect to the 10th house. So you can expect some help and luck in your career development. Especially after Jupiter turns direct on March 11th in 2026, you'll feel things are moving forward. So Saturn transit the first house for Aries risings and moons is a very important transit because in Vedic astrology, whenever a planet crosses the ascendant degrees and goes retrograde, the planet is going to make you relearn or integrate the lessons related to the planets. So the biggest lesson of Saturn is time and responsibilities. time pressure, management of your time, and how you are going to use the time. You have to manage all your obligations, responsibilities, your work, family, and create the time to do the things that you truly love. So when Saturn transits the first house, immediately you will experience situations where a lot of your time is taken away. You'll become super occupied, whether it's because of your jobs, your studies, obligations, family, or things, responsibilities that you didn't necessarily choose, yet you can't get away from. So for example, you might be working a full-time job while getting a master's degree in the evening, or working 2 jobs and taking care of your kids. The most obvious thing that you notice is that you feel very busy, that you don't have time for yourself for this transit. And first house rules the body, so you may also notice that you don't have the same energy levels to move around, to work long hours, especially if you're after 50 years age and you need more time to rest. And also Saturn transit the first house brings challenges to the body because it weakens the body. So it can also bring up some health concerns. It doesn't mean you're going to get sick, but some signals that may need attention. And these issues can come up from overwork, stress, lack of rest, or neglect the physical body. Particularly for Aries moons, you'll feel more because Saturn is transiting your moon sign, it's transiting your body and also how you feel. So it can cause more stress on the emotional level. So pay attention to that and try to find ways to relax and reset. Saturn transit the first house, it is a period of time where you will be required to work really hard. Because Saturn is also a significator of hard working and effort. So really take good care of your body because you're going to need it to do the things that you want to do during this transit. Saturn transit here, the first house, can also feel more frustrating, a lot of pressure like work stress, deadlines, tight schedule, and also slow progress. So you will feel like you don't have time to get everything done. But all these situations will push you to become more organized, focused, responsible, and better at handling pressure and managing your time management. So these are the essence of Saturn's qualities. And also these are the essence of success. So that's why when Saturn transits the first house, Saturn is making you relearn those lessons, regain those qualities in order for you to be successful. And Saturn transit here would definitely bring tremendous personal growth and transformation. And sometimes in life, we need a good amount of pressure in order to rise to the top. If everything is smooth, people tend to become lazy. That said, Saturn transit the first house is looking at the 10th house. So Saturn is also putting the pressure onto the 10th house. And Saturn is also the lord of your 10th house, looking at the 10th house. And at the same time, Jupiter will be in your 4th house until end of June. So like I said, the first 6 months of 2026, Jupiter will be in the 4th house aspecting the 10th house. So you see from March to June, this 4 months time, there will be a strong focus on career development because Jupiter is also looking at the 10th. Saturn transit the 1st house is also looking at the 10th. So there will be a strong focus on career development or working on your social status, your reputation. And then Jupiter is currently in your 4th house, will enter Leo in the 5th house on July 1st, 2026 and stay there until July 27th, 2027 for 1 year time. And if you'd like to know Jupiter transit Cancer, you can refer back to the video that I did last year. 5th house is a trinal house. Jupiter is doing great in the trinal house. And 5th house rules our creative expressions, intelligence, learning and education, fun and pleasure. So with Jupiter's influence here, you may feel more inspired, creative and expressive. For Aries risings and moons, Jupiter is the 9th lord, transiting the 5th. So you might feel drawn to learn something that boosts your intellect or enhances your skills, which can help your career path. Like I said, because in the first 6 months of 2026, Saturn transit the first house looking at the 10th, Jupiter transit the 4th house looking at the 10th. So there's a strong focus on your career. When Jupiter moves into the 5th house after June, in July, you might be inspired to learn something that can help you to take your career to the next level. And also, Jupiter transiting the 5th house, you also feel like the need to upgrade your knowledge. So like I said, you can take next step in your career path. And some of you may feel called to return to school, take a course, or deepen your learning, including spiritual knowledge, because Jupiter is also the Lord of the 12th house, transiting the 5th. And if you've been waiting to apply or re-enter a learning situation, this transit will be very supportive of that. And even if you're not a student, you will still feel inspired to learn something. And just keep in mind that it will take up a lot of your time. As I mentioned, with Saturn transiting the 1st house, how to handle the pressure of time and manage all the things that you want to do, all the responsibilities that needs to be filled, will be the main experiences in 2026. And this combination of Jupiter transiting the 5th and Saturn transiting the 1st in the second half of 2026, you may find yourself busy by choice. Perhaps you're inspired to pursue certain things, to learn something. And even though it may feel overwhelming at times, the energy still can bring a lot of growth and a sense of fulfillment. Because Jupiter transit the 5th house is actually a good house. So that's Aries risings and moons. For Taurus risings and moons, Saturn is currently in your 11th house. It will move into Aries in your 12th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13, 2028 for 2 years' time. The 12th house is an unseen and unknown place because it's behind the ascendant. It's behind you, so that's why it's not visible to your eyes. That's why it rules foreign places and hidden things. 12th house is also a house of loss of money, loss of energy. So Saturn transit here can certainly bring up some chronic health issues and make you more aware of your health. And since 12th house is a house of losing energy, you might feel drained, fatigued, or more lethargic under this influence. 12th house also rules how we relax. So the sleep can also be disturbed during this transit, because you're probably still thinking about work when you're supposed to relax. On the positive side, you may start to have more health awareness because you feel more drained and fatigued. You want to know why. So you start to take care of the physical body, emotions, and work on restructuring your health, your well-being. 12th house is a house of expenses and loss, like spending money or losing money. So you could spend money on health, general well-being, or healing sessions, supplements, diets, or hospital visits, or alternative treatments and diets. It doesn't mean you're gonna get sick, but because you have more health awareness, you probably spend more money on things related to health or hospitals. With Jupiter moving into Leo in your 4th house after June 2026, you might be inspired to make some changes in your home environment. For example, like buying property, renovation, even relocation. So some of your expenses could be related to home or family matters. So apart from health-related matters, after June 2026, you probably spend more money on home or your family, which is okay as long as you are not losing money for nothing. So if you want to avoid unnecessary spending, you can voluntarily plan some expenses for your home and family, or maybe buy something that's related to health, supporting your health each month, like a small amount of money. That's the remedy. or donation to charity monthly, like small donation. Because in Chinese astrology, they have a lot of remedy to avoid unnecessarily spending. Work-wise, for Taurus risings and moons, Saturn is ruling the 10th house, transiting the 12th, which might make you feel less motivated or uncertain about your career goals. 12th house is the last house, is the ending of the cycle. So there could be some shift around work. For example, for some of you might feel like leaving your job, or you try to avoid taking on certain work or additional responsibilities. And your work might shift into something more behind the scenes or in a more isolated situation, like working alone, working from home, working long hours, working remotely, or working abroad, or your job requires more travel, because 12th house is foreign places, distant lands, which is not a bad thing, because Rahu will move into the north node of the moon, will move into the 10th house in late July 2026. This could also be an indication of a new territory, unfamiliar territory, or a new social image. For example, an ending of an old working situation, an old role, and starting a new one. So that fits to Saturn transit the 12th house, and also the prediction that I just gave. And the 12th house also brings global connection. And your job may have more foreign connections under this influence, which is also tied in with Rahu's moving into 10th house, because Rahu also is about the foreign international connection. So maybe Rahu can expand your visibility internationally or globally. From July 2026, Jupiter will move into the 4th house, aspecting the 10th house, so shooting the influence to the 10th house. It brings blessings and supports in your work situation. So even though Saturn transit the 12th house brings challenges, changes, shifts, uncertainty in the 12th house, Jupiter's influence will help you feel more hopeful and motivated. Then Jupiter is currently in the 3rd house, will enter Leo in the 4th house on July 1st, 2026, and it will stay here for 1 year. And if you'd like to know the prediction about Jupiter transiting Cancer, you can refer back to the video that I made last year. And Jupiter transit the 4th house. 4th house rules your home, your domestic environments, property, garden, your lands, your farms, how happy and stable you feel in the world, because that's the inner world, your inner happiness. It also rules the family, especially your mother and the home country. Jupiter transit here is good because it will enhance your inner happiness, so you are able to remain hopeful in any stressful situation. Especially Saturn transit the 12th house could bring some uncertainty, so Jupiter transit the 4th house, you can still feel that you remain happy and optimistic. It brings the positivity in your heart. And Jupiter is a planet of expansion and growth. With Jupiter moving into the 4th, you may feel inspired to improve your living conditions. For example, redecorating, renovating, replacing some furniture, or even moving homes. As I mentioned earlier, Saturn moving into the 12th house could indicate potential expenses. So you could actually spend some money on your home, property, garden, your farm, your family members or loved ones. This could be a remedy for potential loss of money. Especially Jupiter is the lord of the 8th house transiting the 4th. 8th house rules transformation and changes, transiting the place of home. So it does indicate some shifts around the domestic setting, or change of residence, or buying, selling a land, buying, selling a property, or a transport. So there's a possibility that even if you're not physically moving, you might be changing your register address. So for some countries, they have this rule, even though your register address is not the same your residence address. So Metaphorically speaking, it's also a sign that you move houses. It's just you're not physically moving to the house, you only change the register address. So that could also happen too. For Taurus risings and moons, Jupiter rules your 11th house. The 11th house is the money that we make. It's the long-term plans and goals. 4th house is home conveniences. So this also could be a good time to increase the value of your property. Again, renovating, replacing something, upgrading furniture, improving your home, improving your land and farm. And this applies not only to your home, but also to your personal conveniences. For example, your cars, your motorbikes, your boats, your yachts, or similar assets. And Jupiter is a planet of expansion. 4th house rules home and family. Jupiter could also bring some new member into the home. For example, a baby or someone moving in with you or a new pet. So that was Taurus risings and moons. Gemini risings and moons. Saturn is currently in the 10th house. We're moving to Aries in your 11th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13, 2028. 11th house is a good house for Saturn. In fact, 10 and 11 houses, they're both good for Saturn. 11th house rules gains, rewards, fruits of your effort, recognition of your work, titles, promotion. It also rules your long-term plans and goals. It rules your friend circles, marketplace, elderly siblings, and communities that you're part of. So for Gemini risings and moons, if you have been putting a lot of effort in your career in the past 3 years, because Saturn was moving into your 10th house in the past 3 years. When Saturn moves into the 11th house, you will find doors and job opportunities that coming to you. There could be opportunities for long-term job contract if you've been working freelance or casually. 11th house rules gains and rewards from your efforts. So you will definitely have opportunities to increase your income in a more stable way. But it requires discipline and patience because Saturn usually brings delays, and rewards could manifest through a pay rise, a new role, new contracts, new source of income. That said, Saturn is still Saturn. Even though it's in a good house, it still brings challenges and delays in the 11th house matters. So things I mentioned just now, like rewards, pay rise, promotion, could also be delayed. If you're in a business field or running any type of entrepreneurial projects, there might be some delays slowing down the income flow. Or you might need to go through extra steps to meet demands of the market. Saturn is the ruler of your 8th house transiting the 11th. 8th house rules changes and transformations, and it also rules shared assets and resources. Saturn transit here, it is time to reassess how you share and receive money from the group, from your clients, or collaborations. So you might need to restructure business partnerships, investment returns, and profit sharing to make them more sustainable. If you are involved in investments or financial projects, Saturn here will also make you become more cautious and responsible of your financial decisions. So you can have a strong foundation for steady and lasting growth. 11th house rules social circles and friends networks. So 8th house, Lord of Saturn transiting the 11th house, there could be some shift around your friendships and social contacts. Some friends are not friends anymore. You may also need to reevaluate organizations or communities that you're part of, reassessing whether they are still aligning with your values and directions. Then Jupiter. Jupiter is currently in the 2nd house and will enter Leo in your 3rd house on July 1st, 2026 and stay there for 1 year. And if you'd like to know Jupiter's prediction in Cancer, you can refer back to the video that I made last year. So this year, the first 6 months of 2026, Jupiter will still be in your second house, money, resources, while Saturn moving to the 11th house from February. So from March to June, there's a strong focus on money. You may be inspired to learn something about finances and money management because Jupiter is a significator of learning, study, and self-development when it's still in the second house and Saturn in the house of long-term planning. You're probably inspired to learn something about money, and Saturn transit the 11th house can help you create structure and long-term stability. And this combination can also encourage you to recognize your financial situations, budget, and savings. So it is a good time to lay a strong foundation for future gains and to build healthy money habits and investment plans that support your long-term goals. This is for the first 6 months of 2026. And then on July 1st, Jupiter moves into the third house. Third house rules our mental process, intellect. It rules learning a tool or knowledge to help you achieve your desires and goals. And it rules communication, short distance travels, and younger siblings. Third house is a busy house, so it's a house of daily effort, fighting for making your desires to come true. So it is also an action-oriented house. So when Jupiter transits here, your conscious mind will become busy. Your daily schedule will also become busier under this influence. You'll notice an increase in communication, like you communicate with a lot of people, lots of meetings, interactions with others, and even travels. And your communication and presentation skills will also become more flowing, more effective, which can benefit your work performance and work efficiency because maybe a lot of work, some of the work requires a lot of communication. And also you can feel an improvement in your business activities, for example, like sales, marketing, advertising, media work, publication, or any job that requires communication and presentational skills. Third house rules commercial activities. This is also a good time for those who are interested in starting a side project or a business. Jupiter here will bring some inspiration and ideas, and you will feel ready to take practical actions on them. As I mentioned earlier, Saturn transit the 11th house will also bring opportunities, and also 11th house is about long-term planning, long-term goals, things that you do for the long run. So it is a good time for Gemini risings and moons to act on it. Although Saturn can usually bring some delays and more demand of your effort. So be patient with that. So that was for Gemini risings and moons. Cancer risings and Cancer moons. Saturn is currently in the 9th house and will move into Aries in your 10th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13, 2028. Saturn traveling through the 10th house is actually a good house. It's also a big deal in Vedic astrology because each planet has their own key houses. For Saturn, those are the 10th and the 6th. So when Saturn transits these two houses, it begins a new cycle of building and restructuring the themes that are related to the house. 10th house rules our ambitions, things that we're here to build and contribute to the world, to the society. Usually shows up as a career in the modern society. But it can also be anything that represents your legacy, for example, like parenthood, meaningful projects. It doesn't have to be your career. And it rules the work environment, our social status, reputation. When Saturn transits here, it's the beginning of a new cycle, the cycle of building your career, things that you want to do, and your long-term contribution. So for Cancer risings and moons, Saturn is the Lord of the 8th house, transiting the 10th. So it's a serious turning point because 8th house rules changes and transformation, transiting the 10th house. So it could bring restructuring in your career path, career development, your role, or moving into a new direction, change of public image, and job responsibilities. There might be shifts around work environments and responsibilities, like job responsibilities. You may even question if this is the right place and right direction for you. But usually when Saturn transits the 10th house, you will think seriously about what you like to build and accomplish. And you will start taking important actions towards things that you really want to achieve or your professional goals. Maybe something you've been thinking of doing for a while but haven't got around to, and you will become more committed to a long-term plans, making real progress in your career development or readjusting, redefining the career path. For some people, especially if you've been doing something that feels less meaningful, this is the time you will gain a lot of clarity and a sense of direction where you want to go in life. It can also be a slow process because Saturn usually brings delays and setbacks. So you may feel clearer, closer to the end of Saturn's transit. 10th house rules work environments. Saturn could also bring more challenging supervisors, work environments, or shifts around your job responsibilities and shifts of the work situation. This could also be the reason that pushes you to reevaluate your work environments. And Saturn is a planet of effort. So when Saturn transits the 10th house can put a lot of pressure on you. There could be unexpected responsibilities that can feel overwhelming, particularly for Cancer moons, because you can feel extra stressed during this transit because moon rules how we feel, our emotions. On the positive notes, the tests that come with Saturn transit in the 10th house also bring more structure, discipline, maturity, and order to your professional life. The delays or challenges, shifts, or mistakes that you face during this transit will definitely help you become more organized, productive, methodical in your work. Also, over time, you gain much more clarity about your career path. Like I said, you probably reassess, reevaluate if the things that you're doing are aligning your long-term goal. The first 6 months of 2026, Jupiter will still be in the first house, which brings counterbalance of Saturn's heaviness in the 10th house. So it's actually good when Saturn transit moves into Aries. That's mid-February. So from March to June, Jupiter will still be in the 6th house. And it brings us a sense of optimism, opportunities for work, learning, and travel. Because when Jupiter transiting the first house, you will feel the expansion in all aspects of your life. So even though when Saturn transits, the 10th house could bring a lot of pressure, changes, uncertainty, or shifts, you still remain hopeful. And you will also be able to see possibilities and feel more confident in your path forward. Then Jupiter will move into Leo in your 2nd house on July 1st, 2026, and stay there for 1 year. So if you'd like to know what Jupiter's prediction in Cancer, you can refer back to the video that I've made last year. 2nd house is related to savings, finances, material possessions, personal values, and your family. So during this transit, there will also be opportunities to grow your personal wealth, and your desire to build material security will increase as well. 2nd house is below the 1st house. It supports the 1st house. So that's why it rules anything that can support the body. That's why it rules resources, money, food, and family. So when Jupiter transits here, it increases the support of your family. You can count on them when you need help. Especially earlier, I mentioned that Saturn transit the 10th house could bring some challenges or shifts around the work situation, your role, your public image. So it's nice to have family in your corner. And Jupiter transit here can also increase your contacts with your family members. For some of you, you might even benefit from wills and inheritance under this influence. Particularly for Cancer moons, because moon is manas, that means our consciousness, how you feel, and how your perception of your life experiences. So when Jupiter transits the second house for Cancer moons, you will feel more secure and supported. And there's a sense of inner security. You feel like whenever you need, there are resources available for you. It could be cash, gifts, opportunities, benefactors, skills, or talents. And this feeling of being supported, whether it's emotionally or materially, can help you move closer to your long-term goals. As I mentioned, Saturn transit the 10th house is about the long-term direction in your career. And Jupiter is a significator of wisdom and learning. So when Jupiter transits here, especially Jupiter is also the lord of your 9th house, transiting the 2nd house, it's possible that you inspire to learn something that can increase your earning capacity, or investments, finances, or money management. That said, Jupiter can also bring excess and overindulgence. Second house rules comfort and material possessions. So be mindful of overspending or wasting money. But if you're using that money for investments, for example, like properties, other investment items, then that's good. So that was for Cancer risings and moons. Now Leo risings and moons. Saturn is currently in your 8th house, will move into Aries in your 9th house on February 14th, 2026, and stay there until April 13th, 2028. 9th house rules our values, beliefs, religious views, higher learning, higher education. It also rules our educators, including your parents, teachers, parental figures, and it rules long-distance travels. Especially in Vedic astrology, it rules the teaching from the father's side. So when Saturn, the planet of discipline and reality checks, moves into the 9th house, it brings seriousness and structure to all those topics. It's not a casual or easy transit because it's to do with your values and your belief system. And so that's why it's a time of testing, maturing, realigning with your beliefs and values. 9th house, as I mentioned, it rules our educators, particularly the father, teachers, elders, or parental figures. When Saturn transits here, you may start questioning those beliefs and values that you inherited from them or from old traditions, if those values still align with who you are at the moment. And your relationship with those people could also become more difficult under this transit. Usually when Saturn transits the 9th house, it could also show that the distance between you and your father. It could be physical, it could be emotional. And there might be situations that challenges your old way of thinking. For example, you may feel called to pursue advanced learning, but as you begin, you realize the teaching don't resonate the way they used to. Or a mentor that you trusted may give you advice that feels outdated. Or you might discover that long-held belief no longer supports your growth. So it's a time of testing of your values, and it's quite internal. And the outer circumstances may also force you to evaluate your beliefs, whether it's spiritual, academic, or cultural, or even your ideas about your career and the role you expect yourself to be. And through questioning and strong desire to explore or shift in your belief system could spark curiosity and lead you to a higher learning, even higher education, or lead you to a new teacher or other learning situations. It doesn't have to be a teacher, it could be a mentor, so lead you to a new mentor as well. And Saturn is an isolated planet, so the transit in the 9th house is great for self-learning, self-studying, and researching. If you have started any course or plan to take any course during this transit, you will take a more disciplined approach to learning, which is great for deep diving into subjects that requires patience, introspection, focus, for example, like philosophy, astrology, spiritual subjects, or law. And this period is highly favorable for pursuing a master degree or PhD. So if you've been thinking to do one of those, this is a good time. But on the other hand, the curriculum, assignments, or homework would demand more of your dedication, effort, and time from you. So it's not going to be easy. And your educators will also expect more structure and responsibilities from you. But from July 2026, Jupiter will move into your first house and aspecting to the ninth house. So Jupiter opens doors for new ideas, new insights, new teachers, new course, and connecting with the right teacher, right mentor, and also foreign connection. So your growth comes with learning, and it brings a relieving factor to Saturn's pressure and heaviness in the ninth house. On the more mundane level, for those who are working in teaching, training, giving instructions, education, mentorship, law, religious-related, travel-based jobs, or anything involving international connections, international trades, this transit can bring increased responsibilities and workload, which is good. And in general, this could be there could be increased work trips as well, because Saturn is a significator of work. Ninth house rules journeys. So more work trips, business trips. And Saturn transit the ninth house could also bring delays or serious committed approach to planning a long distance journey or pilgrimage. Especially Jupiter will be in your 12th house for the first 6 months of 2026. And 12th house is also about traveling to a distant land. So it could definitely indicate long distance travel and requires more preparation and planning. Then Jupiter is currently in your 12th house and will enter Leo in your first house on July 1st, 2026 and stay there until July 27, 2027. And if you'd like to know what Jupiter was doing in the 12th house, you may refer back to the video that I did last year. So for Leo risings and moons, Jupiter transit the first house is a very important transit, because in Vedic astrology, whenever a planet crosses these ascendant degrees and goes retrograde, that makes these planets and its transits extremely important. Just like the natal chart, whatever a planet in the first house, you become that planet. So when Jupiter crosses the ascendant degrees and goes retrograde, Jupiter is making you relearn, regain the traits and qualities of Jupiter. And Jupiter is a significator of money, wisdom, and happiness. So the major experiences for Leo risings and moons you will notice is expansion in these all three areas. Improvements in your money situation, growth in your mind, in your wisdom, and also your happiness. So this is a very, very good transit. And Jupiter brings opportunities to improve your financial situation. It could be that you are just starting to earn money for the first time, or beginning to make more money through your business. But overall, you can expect some improvements in your money situation. And Jupiter transit the first house will also bring expansion, breakthrough to your current situation. If you have been unsure, uncertain about your career and future steps, especially when Jupiter transit the 12th house, can also create confusion and uncertainty. Jupiter moving to the first house will definitely bring some clarity, inspirations, and you will start to see possibilities and feel more confidence in your path forward. And Jupiter is the lord of your 5th house transiting the first. It will also increase your personal charm, your charisma, your confidence. It's an excellent time to put yourself out there, especially if your work involving teaching, sales, creativity, or any role that requires public presence and visibility. This is a good time to put yourself out there. And if you've been trying to start some projects but having difficulties in the past, Jupiter transit the first house will be a great time. Opportunities for the new career, side project, or new path might present themselves. And this is also a good time for business development. And Jupiter is a planet of learning, wisdom. So when it transits the first house, definitely you will have a strong desire for personal growth. Not to mention Saturn is also transiting the ninth house, house of learning, house of education. It's about your values and beliefs. So through learning, education, reading, travel, or new experiences, you will have a personal growth. That was for Leo risings and moons. For Virgo risings and Virgo moons, Saturn is currently in your 7th house and will move into Aries in your 8th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13th, 2028, 2 years' time. So when Saturn shifts signs, it immediately brings the challenges and lessons that you need to learn. So you could also make mistakes related to the topics of the house. So for Virgo risings and moons, Saturn is the lord of your 6th house, transiting the 8th. 6th house rules work, and Saturn is also a significator of work and effort. So when Saturn transits the 8th house, could bring some disturbance in your career or restructuring in your work situation. For example, you could go through some challenges or changes in your career development. Change of job responsibilities, change of reporting line, change of your department. Some people might even choose to change their career voluntarily during the transit. So the good news is that Jupiter will still be in your 11th house for the first 6 months of 2026. Jupiter here brings opportunities for jobs, rewards from career. It expands your social network. So people within your circle could introduce you some job opportunities or support your professional growth. And if you experience any shifts or changes in your work situation from Saturn transiting in the 8th house, Jupiter's transit through the 11th house for the 6 months of 2026 acts like a relieving factor, softening the obstacles and opening more doors for your career progress. Saturn transit the 8th house is supportive for those who are working in healing, psychology, astrology, medical-related areas, insurance, banking, archaeology, or research. As I mentioned, Saturn is the lord of your 6th house transiting the 8th. Apart from work, it can also bring up some health issues to the surface because 6th house also rules health, illness, particularly chronic, hidden, or slow developing conditions. And Jupiter will move into your 12th house after June in 2026. So the second half of 2026, it could lead to hospital-related expenditure because the 12th house rules expenses. So it's best to schedule a health checkup to be sure that everything is okay. And 6th house also rules habits and routines. And when it transits the house of transformation and changes, you may change or adopt new habits, new routines. For example, you may adapt a more disciplined lifestyle to improve your health or accommodate your work performance. As I mentioned, because the Saturn is the lord of the 6th house transiting the 8th, it could bring up some health concerns. So that's why you probably will adopt a more disciplined lifestyle, a different lifestyle to improve your health. A friend of mine is Virgo rising. She started a new healthier diet plan with a nutritionist while also adding workout routines and yoga. And this happened during Saturn's briefly transiting through her 8th house from June to August 2025. So for Virgo risings and moons, you can also think back what happened during June to August this year in 2025. This is a good example of how Lord of Six transiting the 8th house can play out. 8th house also rules other people's money, your spouse's money, business partner's money, joint resources, and shared finance. When Saturn transits here, your partner might be dealing with some financial challenges or shifts. It doesn't necessarily mean something bad. It really depends on where you're at in your life. For example, it could be as minor as paperwork delays related to your partner's investments or delays with a bank loan, because 8th house is other people's money. So bank loan, that's also other people's money. Or your spouse needs to redirect their money into running their own business. So they provide less support to the household. And of course, it could also mean they are dealing with some financial setbacks. So for Virgo risings and moons, you may need to take responsibility and help manage the financial situation with your partner, or take on more financial responsibilities yourself to make sure things are running smoothly, either within the household or in a business partnership. And Saturn transit here also shows that it's best for you to get into the position where you don't have to depend on other people's resources and support. And this becomes like a long-term lesson during Saturn's transit in your 8th house over the next 2 years. Because Saturn transit the 8th house is also aspecting, looking at the opposite house, the 2nd house, your own money, your own resources. So for Virgo risings and moons, in addition to dealing with your joint resources with your partner, you will also need to learn to manage your own money more responsibly. Then Jupiter. Jupiter is currently in your 11th house and will enter Leo in 12th house on July 1st, 2026, and stay there for 1 year. And if you'd like to know Jupiter transiting the 11th house in Cancer, you can refer back to the video that I did last year. So 12th house is a house of completion. It's a house of accumulation of all your previous experiences. So when the planets transit here, especially Jupiter and Saturn, because they stay longer in one zodiac sign, so there's always a sense of completion, finishing things up, and uncertainty. And Jupiter is a significator of money, children, education, learning, religion, and husband in women's charts. So over the next 12 months' time, you may go through experiences related to those areas and gain realization or deep insights. As I mentioned earlier, Saturn will move into the 8th house in mid-February 2026. So this could bring up some issues related to shared money, joint assets, or learning to manage finances together, whether with your partner or in a business relationship. So with this combination of Jupiter transiting the 12th house, Saturn in the 8th house, you may experience a restructuring of your money situation, particularly the second part of 2026. And Jupiter is the lord of the 7th house, transiting the 12th house. It could also indicate that your partner might go through a transition phase. And Jupiter is also the lord of your 4th house, transiting the 12th. There could also be some increased expenses related to home, repairs, family matters, family members, or travel, or even relocation, or moving away from the current home. So when Jupiter moving into the 12th house after June 2026, and Saturn moving into the 8th house, both 8 and 12, they are moksha houses, house of liberation. So for Virgo risings and moons, this combination indicates a strong focus on transformation, deep learning, and personal growth. As I mentioned, Jupiter is also a significator of learning and wisdom. So when it transits the 12th house, you may also feel drawn to meditation, spiritual practices, yoga, reading, spending time alone, or even adopting a spiritual practice. And these activities help you stay centered and focus in the midst of everything, especially Saturn transit the 8th house. And if you already have a daily spiritual practice, this transit can also bring some significant breakthroughs in your spiritual development. Jupiter transit here could also expand your interest in psychology, the esoteric knowledge, music, art, films, invisible world. 12th house rules foreign places, so there might be opportunities for foreign travels, foreign connections, or people from a distant land. And you may also have a strong desire to visit faraway locations. But be very mindful of your spending, because 12th house rules expenses and spending. Jupiter transit here can increase your expenses. And with Saturn transiting the 8th house, you might not get much financial support from your partner. So it's important for Virgo risings and moons to keep a solid budget, to handle any unexpected costs. And if you want to avoid unexpected expenses, one of the remedies is to make monthly donation. Even a small donation is good. The method comes from Chinese astrology. So if you voluntarily lose some money monthly, it can prevent larger or sudden expenses. So that was for Virgo risings and moons. Libra risings and Libra moons. Saturn is currently in your 6th house and will move into Aries in your 7th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13th, 2028. 7th house rules all types of relationships, collaborations, both personal and professional. It rules contractual alliances, negotiations, public interactions, marketplace, and one-to-one communication. On the romantic level, when Saturn shifts into the 7th house, it creates delays or challenges in relationships. It may also test the strength of partnerships. So if you have any issues that were swept under the rug, it will come to the surface during this transit. They can either strengthen the relationship through mutual efforts or leads to distance or separation if the foundation of the relationship is not solid. And Saturn's energy is cold and shrinking, so you could also feel distant from your partner, or you are carrying more emotional weight in the relationship. Perhaps your partner is preoccupied, unavailable, or they might be dealing with something stressful like work, studies, or stress in general, family responsibilities. And Saturn is putting pressure on the 7th house, your partner, so they might be going through a challenging time or transitional phase and leaving all the responsibilities to fall on your shoulders. So you need to learn to be more responsible for both of you. Especially for Libra moons, you could feel more because moon rules how we feel, our emotions. So all these tests, all these outer situations could help you reevaluate how you expect from relationships, how you contribute to them, how you can offer support, how you can make your connections more meaningful and aligned with your values and beliefs, or if you have already reached your limits and something needs to change. On the opposite side, it could also lead to more stable and long-term commitments. Usually Saturn transit the 7th house, it leads to the long-term commitment. When Saturn moves, when Saturn leaves the 7th house, that's when you break the commitment. And Saturn transit the 7th house helps you approach to relationships become more mature, realistic, responsible as well. And you may also enter collaborations that are more long-term and aligned with your goals. So for Libra risings, Saturn is ruling your 5th house, transiting the 7th. Romantic connections may shift towards the long-term commitments because 5th house rules romance. 7th house is long-term partnerships. And Saturn brings maturity and responsibilities. So if you're single, you may look for or attract a partner who is older or more serious during this transit. On the professional level, 7th house rules other people and your interaction with others. So you may feel restrained in all kinds of negotiation situations, collaborations, working with other people, and there could be delays in contracts, communications, delays in collaborations. And this transit is especially noticeable if your work depends on making connections, forming alliances, deal making, negotiating terms, or if your job needs to involve other people to complete, you will feel the most. And if you're already in the business partnership or some form of collaborative relationship, it may go through a review, like differences in interests, goals, or lack of trust. And in some cases, Saturn transit here could also enter partnership, like business partnership, no longer serves you. But at the same time, it's also possible that you want to start a new business on your own, Especially 7th house rules the marketplace, enterprise. Saturn transit here, you might feel inspired to start something on your own, whether it's business or stepping into self-employment. And Jupiter will move into your 11th house after June in 2026. So the second half of 2026, this transit could expand your social circles and bring new connections. And if an existing work relationship doesn't work out, Jupiter transit the 11th house may open fresh opportunities and supportive friendships that help you move forward. So you don't have to worry too much if you feel stuck in your current collaborations or people that you work with. After June in 2026, when Jupiter moves into the 11th house, it opens up social circles. And that brings the topic to Jupiter. Jupiter is currently in your 10th house and will enter Leo in your 11th house on July 1st, 2026, and will stay here for 1 year. And if you'd like to know Jupiter's transit in Cancer in your 10th house, you may refer back to the video that I did last year. 10th house and 11th house are both very good houses for career, visibility, recognition, your efforts, the fruits of your efforts, your social connections. So for Libra risings and moons, even Saturn's transit through the 7th house may bring some delays or tension in collaborations or working with others or within the marketplace. Jupiter's in 10th house or 11th house, still very supporting your career development and business growth and long-term achievement. So sometimes a little bit of pressure, that doesn't affect your expansion and growth because they push you to rise to the higher level. And when life is too smooth or comfortable, it's actually easier to become lazy and lose your drive. So for Libra risings and moons, I feel like 2026 provides a very good opportunity for you to rise to the top, to expand and thrive. 11th house rules gains, recognition, titles, and honor. The benefits that we get from the society. That's why it also rules the marketplace. And it rules our long-term dreams and goals, social connections, network circles, community, elderly siblings. When Jupiter transit here, you can expect rewards, promotion, recognition from your efforts, from your career. And Jupiter brings growth and expansion in your income. So it brings opportunities in marketplace for your business as well. So for Libra risings and moons, Jupiter is the Lord of the 6th house, transiting the 11th house. So this is particularly true that you get rewards from your consistent work and effort. 11th house is the house of money. So Jupiter transit here brings improvements in your income source, possibly multiple income streams during this transit. And 11th house also rules social and network circles. So when Jupiter's influence here, you be open to socialize and meet new people, meet new friends. And this could be some interesting people who open your mind and bring opportunities to you. Overall, Jupiter transit the 11th house supports material gains, long-term professional growth, and the expansion of your social and professional networks. So that was for Libra risings and moons. Scorpio risings and Scorpio moons, Saturn is currently in your 5th house and will move into Aries in your 6th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13, 2028. 6th house rules work, lifestyle, routines, habits, everyday activities. 6th house also rules more difficult things in life. For example, health, diseases, disagreements, conflicts, litigation, any situation that's lack of balance. So debts, poverty, enemies, exploitation. 6th house also rules people who are in trouble, people who are in lower social rank, and it rules small animals and service, helping others. With Saturn's influence here, some imbalanced situations related to these themes will come to the surface. You will start to realize that your body, your work, your lifestyle, these 3 areas might need some adjustments. Health-wise, Saturn transit here brings a reality check. You will become more aware of your routines, your habits, your diet, and sleep. For example, working late and going to bed late, that affects your immune system. Or eating convenience food, fast food, because you don't have time. Or you don't have time to take care of your body, etc. And these health concerns and habits may become more noticeable and start to affect your well-being, your health, and also immune system. So it's time to let go of certain habits which are no longer useful to your life or your work. Saturn transit the 6th house is a major time for restructuring and realignment of your diet, of your health, of your work, and find better, more efficient ways of doing things. 6th house is one of Saturn's key houses. Saturn is connected to the elements of Earth, which aligns with the natural way of life, natural way of living. So that's why if your routines, your habits are against the natural rhythm, Saturn transit here will push you to put a lot of effort to sort out any health or lifestyle issues, which is good because whatever improvement that you make during this Saturn transit, the 6th house, or whichever exercise or diet plans that you apply to will lay out a foundation for your health for the next 20 years. Work-wise, 6th house is below the 7th house, so it's the house of supporting other people because 7th house rules other people, working with others. 6th house below, that's supporting others. That's why it rules work, because we're employees, so we do things for other people. And it also rules the services that we do for others. So when Saturn transits here, the focus will be revolving around your work. Perhaps the way you work, how you work, needs some adjustment. Or there might be some challenges that arise in your work situation or in your relationships with your colleagues. And this situation could bring a reality check to your work. For example, the stress that you carry, the dynamics in your work environments, the dynamics between you and your colleagues, or the feeling that what you're doing has become repetitive or boring. And some of you might even choose to leave the jobs during this transit. Especially Ketu will move into the 10th house in July 2026. It also indicates changes around work, your reputation, your social image, your career development as well. But through all this, you also develop a strength and skills to confront issues directly. So Saturn transit the 6th house is not going to beat you down. It's actually helping you to develop the skills and also the strength to deal with all the obstacles around work, around your health, lifestyle. And the good news is that Jupiter will move into your 10th house in July 2026, along with Ketu and Rahu axis. So if you're not happy with your current working situation, if you're looking for another job, Jupiter here will open more doors, opportunities for you. If you continue working hard in your current job, Jupiter will also bring visibility and chances to be recognized. Jupiter transiting the 10th house often brings opportunities for career advancement. So the second half of 2026 will become more promising, hopeful. Overall, during Saturn transit in the 6th house, some adjustments that need to be made around work, habits, lifestyle, and also your health. And oftentimes these areas influence one another. So this transit is actually a fundamental transformation for Scorpio risings and moons. Then it brings to Jupiter. Jupiter is currently in your 9th house and will enter Leo in 10th house on July 1st, 2026, and will stay here for 1 year. And if you'd like to know Jupiter's transit in Cancer in your 9th house, you may refer back to the video that I made last year. So as I mentioned, Jupiter transit the 10th house is great for career advancement, success, as well as your social image, social status. Jupiter transit the 10th house will bring opportunities and doors open for you and help you move forward from your current situation if you have felt stuck or not happy. So like I mentioned, Saturn transit the 6th house may bring up some issues. But when Jupiter comes in to the 10th house, it brings more opportunities for you to move forward. And you will feel more hopeful, ambitious, and focused, which can also help you accomplish a lot under this influence. Saturn transit the 6th house also brings more responsibilities, and also it demands more effort. So when Jupiter transits the 10th house, it brings visibility. So this is actually a good combination. The more efforts that you put in, you get recognized. So for Scorpio risings and moons, this is a good combination because we need a little bit of good pressure in order for you to rise to the top. And 10th house is also an angular house. It's an action house. So Jupiter will bring luck in actions that you take in relation to your career, to your work, or the things that you want to do in life. So the key word here is your actions. And Jupiter transit the 10th house can also sometimes bring a job opportunity that expands you to a whole new department, a whole new phase of your professional life. As I mentioned, Saturn transit the 6th house can also bring more additional responsibilities. So with this combination, naturally, you will have to work harder and have more responsibilities. So maybe promotion, a new job contract, a new position are possible. And even without a promotion, you will still become more significant and visible in your position with more responsibilities, and people are depending on you. Jupiter is the lord of your 2nd house transiting the 10th house. So there could be better paying or better contract job opportunities. And Jupiter is related to education and learning, knowledge, foreign matters, foreign travels. So when it's in the highest position of the chart, 10th house, it can also bring more travel and learning situations, learning opportunities for you. So you might be studying something new to advance your career, or you might have more work trips to other places. Sagittarius risings and Sagittarius moons. Saturn is currently in your 4th house. We're moving to Aries in your 5th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13th, 2028. 5th house rules the speculative business and investments. Saturn transit here is not an ideal time for risky investments or gambling investments as well. But naturally, you'll find yourself becoming more serious, cautious in how you approach speculative ventures and investments. You may start to prefer more stable, structured, or traditional investment options. And it's also a good time for long-term financial planning and getting your money organized, because Saturn is the lord of the 2nd house, transiting the 5th. And plus, during this transit, Saturn is aspecting both your 11th house, the opposite house, and also aspecting back to the 2nd house. Saturn is the lord of your 2nd house. So the money that you make, that's the 11th house, and the money that you save, that's the 2nd house, are both activated. That's why this is a good time to sort out your financial situations in order. As I mentioned, Saturn is the lord of your 2nd house transiting the 5th. It could bring investment opportunities through your family or through material possessions. For example, houses, luxury bags, luxury cars, jewelry, gold, or any type of resources. Or family investments, family lands, family houses, family business. Or it could be that the time when you start looking into investments options in those areas. Another thing that 5th house rules is creation. It rules our creative expressions, education, learning, children. It's a house of fun and pleasures. Saturn is a planet of effort and work. If you work in creative and artistic fields, Saturn here will help you recognize the value of your creative work, of your work in general, and also your creations. And you may become more focused and serious on one of your hobbies or projects, turning into your career, like official projects. And this will slowly unfold over the next 2 years. Saturn is also ruling your 3rd house for Sagittarius risings and moons. When it transits the 5th house, it's 3rd from 3rd, counting from the 3rd house. So you'll be utilizing your intellectual and communicative abilities into creative expressions or into learning, teaching, preaching, parenting, or mentoring. For those who are working in a creative or artistic field, or in the area of writing or education, teaching, mentoring, this transit will bring you positive results. As I mentioned, Saturn is the lord of your third house transiting the fifth. It could also show that you put a lot of effort upgrading your skills, learning skills, or expanding knowledge. But the learning experience could be more boring and dry because Saturn transits here. There might be some moments where you feel like giving up, or the course becomes quite dry and boring and lose your energy and interest. But learning will feel much better after Jupiter moves into the ninth house in July 2026. So the second half of 2026. And Jupiter will make your mind curious and bring joy in any learning situations. But with Saturn's influence in the fifth house, commitment and patience to your learning, to your studies, will still be needed. Fifth house also rules children. So for Sagittarius risings and moons, Saturn is ruling the second house, transiting the fifth. So the house of your family and transiting the house of children. So if you are thinking about starting a family, there might be some delays. For example, there might be some financial concerns or practical reasons or other responsibilities that prevent you from starting a family. Because Saturn usually brings delays. So when Saturn transits the fifth house, that could happen. And if you already have kids, they might go through some challenges or transitions in life that require more of your support and attention. For example, they are transitioning from elementary school to middle school, or preparing for an important exam that could be quite stressful for them, or struggling with learning and academics, homework, sports, or they are entering puberty, or dealing with some other situations that need more of your attention. And if you don't have any kids but work in mentoring, coaching, teaching area, this could indicate your mentees, your students, or your follower. They might need more support and focus during this transit. Because fifth house not just only rules children, it also rules the people that you nurture. So if you don't have kids, that represents your followers, your mentees. Then Jupiter is currently in the 8th house, will move into the 9th house on July 1st, 2026, and stay here for a year. And if you'd like to know Jupiter's transiting in 8th house in Cancer, you can refer back to the video that I made last year. So 9th house is Jupiter's house and is considered the most fortunate house in Vedic astrology. And it rules our higher mind, our outlook on life. With Jupiter's influence here, your mind will become more positive, curious. And you can definitely expect a growth in your level of consciousness. And you'll become open to learning different ideas, philosophies, belief systems, religions, or even spiritual practices. This is a great time for learning and personal growth. 9th house also rules travel. So Jupiter here can bring opportunities for travel, long-distance travels, international travels. It could be for educational purpose, cultural exploration, or spiritual activities. And Jupiter transit the 9th house aspects the opposite house, the 3rd house, which is the local travel, local area. So not just traveling in foreign lands, there are also possibility that you travel in neighbor countries or you take more short trips. Overall, you will spend more time on the move, and Jupiter here will bring blessings and luck to your travels. 9th house also rules foreigners and foreign connections. The connection with foreigners, foreign culture, places will increase under this influence, and these experiences will expand your horizons and bring joy to your life. As I mentioned, 9th house is about learning. Not just learning from books, teachers, also learning from your experiences, from your travels. And it's a very supportive transit for people who work in teaching, coaching, mentoring, travel-based jobs, academia, writing, publication, and media work, because it's aspecting the opposite house, the 3rd house. And if you work in an university setting or in an advisory position, that's also good for humanitarian fields, global issues. It's an excellent time for international business, such as import-export ventures with foreign countries. So that was for Sagittarius risings and moons. Capricorn risings and Capricorn moons. Saturn is currently in your 3rd house and will move into Aries in your 4th house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13, 2028. Saturn transit the 4th house brings responsibilities, duties in your domestic surroundings and your home environments and also your family members, family matters. For Capricorn risings and moons, Jupiter was still transiting your 7th house in the first 6 months of 2026, which brings expansion for partnerships, contractual relationships, contracts, marketplace, business collaborations, and growth of your clientele. So between March to June in 2026, the combination of Saturn transiting the 4th and Jupiter transiting your 7th, this could indicate a growth in the family dynamics. For example, a family member is getting married and you might be supporting, organizing, planning, or hosting. So more responsibilities. Or someone in your family is having a baby or family is going through some tough time and you need to show up, become more involved in family-related matters and family business. And it could also be buying a new house or signing a new lease for your office with your business partner, because that's also a 7th house things. Especially Jupiter transit the house of contracts. Like I said, you might sign a new contract during this transit in the first half of 2026. Back to Saturn. So when Saturn transits the 4th house, one of the most noticeable thing is that it brings up home-related issues that need attention or repair. For example, like leaking, plumbing, water problems, or even moving houses. And even though some of them are not major problems, but because they happen in the place where you're supposed to relax, so it can disturb your inner peace. And apart from physical repairs in the home, challenges might also come through loved ones. Perhaps they need your support and attention. So this could mean showing up for parents, showing up for the loved ones, and helping them go through some emotional challenges, or simply just being present. And other things like property dealing, contracts, or transport issues, because 4th house also rules all the conveniences. Resolution of domestic issues can also face some delays, because usually Saturn brings delays in the house that it transits. And for example, buying property with delays or delayed paperwork, delayed contracts, prolonged negotiation, or the handover of a pre-sale property could be postponed. So be patient with the process. And overall, home and family matters can demand more of your energy, your effort, and you may feel the pressure of home-related responsibilities and duties, family obligations, parental care, or maintaining the house. But all these challenges to help you to build a strong and more stable foundation, because 4th house is the foundation of your heart, and also that's your home. And then Jupiter. Jupiter is currently in your 7th house, will enter Leo in the 8th house on July 1st, 2026, and stay there for 1 year. And if you'd like to know Jupiter transiting Cancer in your 7th house, you may refer back to the video that I did last year. So 8th house rules other people's money, other people's resources, your partner's money, business partner's money, joint resources with your spouse. It rules the money that you get from other people. So for Capricorn risings and moons, this could indicate that your partner is earning more money during this transit. So good luck to them. And you can count on their support when you need it over the next 12 months. And this transit can also have a positive influence on the financial situation between you and your partner, you and your business partner, you and your spouse. Perhaps they get a pay raise, a bonus, or profits from your investments, because investment is also the money that you get from other people. And if you're in a business partnership, they could also contribute more to joint resources, joint assets, or shared expenses. Basically, you can rely on the support from other people, mentally, financially, or emotionally during this transit. For example, your partner or maybe your spouse covers more costs during this transit, or someone offers their resources for you to utilize. Not necessarily money, but it could be their client base or their platform, products, skills, talents, and their benefactors, and so on. However, 8th house is the house of ups and downs. When Jupiter transits here, it can also amplify financial ups and downs. Jupiter is the lord of your 12th house, transiting the 8th house. So there might be some situations require sudden spending, sudden expenses. For example, with loans, medical bills, or taxes, insurance, and shared assets. And vice versa, you may also get an unexpected tax return, insurance claim. But make sure to have a stable cash flow to navigate through some unexpected changes during this transit. For some of you, matters related to wills, inheritance may come up. Perhaps you receive news about the future inheritance, family assets, or document update. And another thing to pay attention to is that 8th house rules unexpected changes, surprises, and situations. And Jupiter usually gives many. So watch out for unexpected surprises during these transits. And these events, not necessarily negative, it depends on the entire chart and also where you're at in your life. But however, they definitely be sudden situations that grab your attention. So just be mentally prepared. Aquarius risings and Aquarius moons. Saturn is currently in your 2nd house. We're moving to Aries in your 3rd house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay there until April 13, 2028. 3rd house in Vedic astrology is a fighting house, like how you fight through life, dealing with challenges, overcoming problems, and how to fight for what you truly want, your desires. And it's also a house of getting things done. So it's a very action-orientated house. It's a tough house. And Saturn is a very tough planet. So when Saturn transits here, it actually is doing very good in the 3rd house. And Saturn transit here would definitely make you put in a lot of effort in fulfilling your desires, your goals, which is good. And if you're not working at the moment, this transit can also help you overcome the trivial troubles of daily life. And the ultimate purpose of this transit is to strengthen and also develop skills, resilience to solve problems in life or overcome obstacles at work. And Saturn transit here tests your dedication to achieve your goals, fulfill your desires, and you may find yourself working harder. And sometimes it may require upgrading your knowledge and skills to achieve them, because 3rd house is also a learning house, learning skills. And 3rd house rules the mind, our thought process, our communication, teamwork, and your relationship with your teammates. 3rd house also rules the siblings. So when Saturn transits here, you will immediately bring some lessons connected to those themes in life. You may experience challenges or unpleasant situations related to your communication skills, which will push you to adjust or refine the way you express yourself, how you communicate, how you express. And your communication style may become more cautious or serious, because perhaps you're in a higher position where you need to speak more carefully, present like professional knowledge, or even manage other people. And Saturn usually brings delays, so you may also have to repeat yourself in your communication, like clarifying things several times or sitting through meetings that drag on long than expected. So be patient with that process. But overall, this transit teaches you to become more thoughtful, precise, and organized in your communication. And in a way, it also helps improve your work efficiency, especially a lot of work requires communication. And this transit is particularly good for writing, teaching, sales pitching, content creation, or any field that requires precision and clear communication. As I mentioned, the 3rd house is a house of fighting for your goals, so it's important to develop some practical skills, knowledge, and learn what you need in order to get closer to your goals. And you might be learning some skills to do your job more efficiently, or to manage your team better, streamline your thinking, or to improve the way you present your ideas. So software, AI, or other communication, or other skills, practical skills. And Saturn transit the 3rd house also indicates you might step up
and take on more responsibilities for your teammates. Or you could be the one who offers help and supports for your teammates. And in a way, it could also mean that you will step into a leadership position, like leading a team or giving advice, guiding others, taking charge at work, which is highly likely because Jupiter will still be in your 6th house for the first 6 months of 2026. So you feel more ambitious and motivated to take on something big. So which is good. This is good for career growth. And also, like I said, 3rd house is a fighting house. You need to put in more efforts in order to achieve your goal. Then Jupiter is currently in your 6th house. We're moving to the 7th house on July 1st, 2026 and stay there for 1 year. And if you'd like to know Jupiter transiting Cancer in your 6th house, you may refer back to the video that I did last year. 7th house is Jupiter's key house because 7th house is a house of partnerships, working something with other people and making it bigger. And Jupiter is a planet of expansion and growth. So when Jupiter transit here is about creating something through partnerships, through working with others and joint effort. And this is a good time for Aquarius risings and moons to take actions and create something significant, something you wish to be recognized, to be seen. And Jupiter transit the 7th house can also bring benevolent partners in your life. And the partnership that you form during this transit will become more long-lasting because you are co-creating things together, achieving your goals together. Romantically speaking, if you are single, you can meet someone during this transit. If you're in a committed relationship, you can also improve harmony and mutual understanding. It could bring marriage as well. For Aquarius risings and moons, Jupiter transit the 7th house aspecting the opposite house. That's the 1st house, your health. So your health will improve, your mood will improve, and it brings blessings and luck to your physical body and health. Particularly for Aquarius moons, because Jupiter is aspecting the 1st house, that's aspecting your moon, your emotions. So it makes you feel good about yourself, you feel more confident in yourself. And it also helps emotional stability. 7th house rules how we deal with others, how well we cooperate, how well we negotiate, how efficiently that we exchange things with other people, and how well we trade, business and trading, marketplace. So when Jupiter transits here, your interaction with other people will increase. And Jupiter brings positivity, opportunities to work with other people, to collaborate. It brings more beneficial working relationship, more allies. And if your work requires you to expand the business, you can expect growth in the clientele, partnerships, and overall business scale over the next 12 months. As I mentioned, Saturn transit the 3rd house is also about, working with a team, your communication. So this combination is very good for achieving your goals if you're working in business in general, expanding your clients. And if you've been thinking to start a new project, a business project, business venture, or side hustle, this is also a good time because Jupiter transit the 7th house is aspecting the 3rd house. But that also means you need to put in more effort. As I mentioned, Saturn transit the 3rd house. More effort fighting for the things that you want. So that was for Aquarius risings and moons. Pisces risings and Pisces moons. Saturn is currently in your 1st house. It will move into Aries in your 2nd house on February 14th, 2026. And Saturn will stay here until April 13th, 2028. Saturn transit here, the 2nd house, will bring some challenges around money. It doesn't indicate you're going to lose some money or have some serious financial trouble. But you might experience some financial delays or general sense of financial pressure during this transit. So it's more about the pressure. And it could be that outer circumstances naturally create some financial restrictions. For example, you decide to leave your job and take a break. So naturally, you will need to be more careful with your spending. or if you decide to take out a mortgage to buy a house or commit to your investment plan, which is possible because Saturn is ruling the 11th house, transiting the second. 11th house is the money that you make, second house is the money that you save. So perhaps you use the money that you make and put it into your investment plan. And naturally, you will need to be more intentional and organized with your spending. For Pisces risings and moons, Saturn is also ruling the 12th house, transiting the second house. So it does indicate a potential loss of money, losing money, spending money. But it doesn't have to be negative, because Jupiter will be in your 5th house in the first 6 months of 2026. So the money that you spend could be related to your children, learning, education, or pleasure, or fun. And 5th house also rules speculative business or more risk-taking ventures. So try to avoid investing something for quick returns. Like I mentioned, Jupiter is the ruler of your 12th house as well. If you be cautious. But Saturn transiting the second house, naturally you'll become more cautious and there's a pressure of money. So just be careful with your investment. And after June 2026, Jupiter will move into the 6th house and aspecting back to the second house. So Jupiter aspecting the second house eases some of the Saturn's pressure and heaviness. So the pressure that you feel from money in the first half of 2026 may be eased out a little bit. And instead, it might be a push, because Saturn's still in the second house. You might feel the push is a positive push to become more disciplined and responsible with your money, with your resources, with your spending. And it could also be a push to earn more steadily. So overall, over time, this transit could bring you long-term financial stability and change the way you use your money and change the way you spend your money and your relationship with the money. Then Jupiter. Jupiter is currently in the 5th house. Will move into the 6th house on July 1st, 2026 and stay there for 1 year. If you'd like to know Jupiter's transit in the 5th house in Cancer, you can refer back to the video that I made last year. 6th house rules work, lifestyle, routines, habits, and everyday activities. 6th house also rules more challenging things in life, for example, like health, diseases, stress, conflicts, and disagreements. So Jupiter here can ease up some of the problems in the workplace. You find enjoyment in your work, and you can get on better with your colleagues and naturally cope with work stress better. And Jupiter here can also bring some help for people, like better teamwork and opportunities to improve the work environment, even new job opportunities. When Jupiter transits the 6th house, you will feel the desire to do something big and expansive, and you become more ambitious with your job. You feel ready to take on more duties and workload. For Pisces risings and moons, Jupiter is ruling the 10th house, transiting the 6th. So your career and visibility are tied to your effort. The more you put in, the more you gain visibility and respect. So your hard work pays off. But Jupiter also rules the 1st house, your body. So when it's transiting the 6th house, the house of health and disease, it can also bring up some health issues, health concerns. So it's important to not overextend yourself where you don't think you're pushing yourself too hard, but you are. 6th house also associated with Virgo. Virgo is about making improvements. So Jupiter here can also make you more aware of your health routines, your diets, and it can also bring an interest in getting your body into a perfect condition as possible. So it's a good time to start a new routine and follow daily. And even if there are some health concerns and issues, you're also trying to find a way to solve those problems. So you might even become interested in well-being, nutrition, diet, healthy eating, and so on. 6th house also rules the details, because it's Virgo's house, analysis. And make sure things are running smoothly. So you may feel driven to improve workflow and bring more order to your daily life, which is good. It also helps the work efficiency. Jupiter transit the 6th house, aspecting the 2nd house. Like I mentioned earlier, this could ease up some of the pressure that Saturn brings in the money house, and it could become a positive push to help you to become more disciplined with your money. And the combination of Jupiter transit the 6th house, Saturn transit the second house in 2026, they are all about money, resources, work, efforts, lifestyle, and habits. This combination can help Pisces risings and moons improve your routines and stabilize your income, stabilize your habits, and take more responsibilities for your long-term security. So 2026 for Pisces risings and moons, particularly the second half, is a period where steady effort leads to real growth, helping you build a strong and lasting foundation for your future.
So that was the wrap on the predictions for 12 signs in 2026, particularly for Saturn and Jupiter's combination. And astrology prediction is like a weather forecast. When you know there's a rain is coming, you can bring an umbrella. It doesn't prevent the rain, but at least it helps you move through it with more awareness and protection. And people usually prefer a smooth, easy year, but the truth is we grow and learn the most when there's some healthy amount of pressure, especially when Jupiter is transiting a house that supports the expansion and Saturn is bringing pressure. That's the pressure that helps you to rise to the top. So I hope this video gave you some insights, helpful insights into what's ahead and how to navigate the journey. And thank you so much for watching. Here's a year of growth, abundance, joyful moments, and exciting new possibilities. See you next time. Take care.